Hi class, welcome to my second oral presentation. Today I'm going to be talking about religious imagery and some of the common themes and symbols that we see in artwork from religions all across the world. You'll probably remember that in chapter 6 we discussed the aesthetic approach to studying religion and all the different ways that religions use the senses in order to practice their beliefs. And you'll probably also remember that a lot of the times people create artwork as a way to express their faith. So now there are some researchers from the University of Istanbul, including a few doctors, that are trying to use the commonalities and similarities between religious symbols and religious artwork from across the world and different points in history to try and draw a connection to the human psyche as the source of religion and religious artwork. So in considering the widespread use of aesthetics in most religions across the world, it is plausible to consider the possibility of an intrinsic or archaic language that comes from the human psyche and allows people to express their spirituality. So it's rather fascinating to learn that different religions and cultures on different continents all across the world have some of the same symbols and themes in their religious imagery, even though they had no real way of connecting with one another or sharing their thoughts. So a lot of the times people try and argue that the similarities and common themes you see in religious artwork and whatnot is mostly just related to the day-to-day life of the people who made the artwork. But now researchers are pointing out that there are different geometric shapes that actually have been inscribed all the way back to Neolithic times, which is like caveman days, that have popped up across different cultures at the same time in history. So the doctors at the University of Istanbul have actually discovered that these different geometrical shapes, which are actually called entoptic images, are something that arise from the central nervous system and that are perceived by people during altered states of consciousness. And that includes, using psychoactive drugs and meditation, things that are really common for religious practice. So now we kind of have this connection between these entoptic images as something that comes from the human mind. And now we see these entoptic images on all different continents across the world from points in history where people really had no way of communicating with one another. And that in itself makes the plausibility of an intrinsic spiritual language that more realistic. Interestingly enough, the researchers from the University of Istanbul mentioned some words that Carl Jung had published in the 1970s. And basically, he stated that this evolution of religious imagery coincides with the evolution of the human central nervous system. In the YouTube video I attached to my presentation, you'll hear from an expert on entoptic images, or what he calls sacred geometry, and his name is Gregory Hoag. And he's gone into a little bit of a discussion about the way he believes patterns in nature of both living and non-living things can be used for holistic healing. And I really think it's interesting to see that, and there's also this newer age era of spirituality as something that stems from nature. It's just interesting to see the way entoptic images come from the human central nervous system, and were also inscribed in many different continents and at the same point in history when these people had no way of communicating with one another. And now we have people going back to these geometric symbols and images as a way to try and spiritually heal themselves. Thanks for watching my presentation, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you have a great rest of the semester.